We're on the record. All right. So, first things first, I don't think we've talked since the actual NAR settlement proposal came out, right? So, how do you guys feel about that? Number one. Number two, have you had a chance to watch the playback video that I sent you with James, Keith, and Ed? And then number three, um, are you hearing anything on the street yet about it? Because I am. So I'm curious to see. And there's no right answer or wrong answer here. If you haven't done any of it, that's great. If you're not hearing anything, that's great. But you got to have some kind of sense about it, at least how you feel about it. So, um, just to recap, just in case you didn't, the NAR entered a proposed settlement, which will likely be adopted, that basically stipulates to everything, all of the big things that we've been talking about for months. Number one, they will no longer be able to offer a co-op commission. There's a few other little pieces that go along with commission. Number two, not just suggested, but mandatory, like in most other states, you will have to execute a buyer's, a BRBC, buyer's brokerage representation agreement. You will have to execute that legally before you ever show a property. So one of our strategies that we've talked about kind of preemptively along these past few months along those lines is, you may end up showing a property and then asking a buyer to sign the agreement afterwards, kind of like in full transparency saying, hey, look, how about if we go look at this one property, and if everything goes well, then you can sign my agreement. The way that the settlement is worded currently, or the proposed settlements were worded currently, is you wouldn't be able to do that. You would have to have that agreement signed and assign agency and assign fiduciary in advance of showing that property. So those are the big kind of broad brushstrokes. There is no indication whatsoever. In fact, there's language to the contrary that a seller cannot pay a buyer's agent's commission. Okay. We might end up calling it different things, and it might come to the table in a different way, but there is no language. And in fact, the language is to the opposite. Like I said, sellers can pay proceeds in one way or in a myriad of different ways to compensate the agent of the buyer. You just can't do it in a traditional co-op commission. Just can't do it, right? So with that said, give me your take. Let me know if you're hearing anything on the street. And if you are hearing anything on the street, I'd like to kind of get a feel for what that is, although I have a good guess. And then, yeah, how you feel about it, if you're hearing about anything on the street, and just generally what your take is on it. Yeah, fire away, popcorn. Whoever wants to go, go.
My friend asked me the other day if I heard about how, so she mentioned something about 6%. What is she talking about with that as a buyer?
Yeah, well, likely what she's talking about, and again, most of these people don't really understand what they're reading or what they're hearing. So, for example, the Today Show the other day on national television, the Today Show's headline was "Goodbye to 6% for real estate brokers." That was the headline. And so people are saying, "Oh, well, now we get it for free." Basically, what they're saying is the seller can no longer offer a co-op commission to a buyer's agent. Buyer's agent has to negotiate for their commission in other ways, some way, somehow, somewhere. What else?
I've seen a ton of, it feels like just misinformation.
Yeah.
People asking me, well, now we can negotiate for commissions. And I've told them that, well, you've always actually been able to negotiate for commissions. This is nothing new. Let's see. Some of my favorite headlines are housing market to slash prices now that the commission structure is gone.
Yeah,
which I think is hilarious.
Oh man.
In my opinion, too, at least down here in SAC, I think that what's going to happen is the feds have alluded to they may cut rates in April.
Yeah.
We got a lot of buyers sitting on the sidelines still, not a lot of inventory still. So I think that prices could go up, even though something like this has happened.
No doubt in my mind. If
And
if
yeah, go ahead.
if I had to hedge, and if I had to make a prediction, I would only hedge towards increase, stable or increase.
Yeah,
Talking to somebody about this today, I don't remember who it was, but those folks, let me go back to 2020, right? We're in the heart of COVID. Rates are 3%, just to pick a number. It's really, really difficult to buy a house because there's a lot of demand and there's very little inventory. At a 3% interest rate, there's a frenzy. There's 20 offers on every property. Everybody remembers this. And we had that segment of people that said, hey, I'm not going to get involved with this. I'm going to wait on the sidelines. I'm going to wait for prices to go down, right? There's going to be a bubble. There's going to be this. There's going to be that. Boy, I'll tell you what, from that point in time until October of last year, rates went up about 6%. Okay. No bubble. Prices didn't go down. In fact, they went up. So there was no price adjustment with a 6% swing in interest rate. There was no inventory adjustment. Inventory is still terrible. And the only thing that happened was that the people that were once qualifying at 3 could no longer qualify. They were qualified at 600,000 at 3%. They're qualified for 400,000 at 8%. There is no such thing as a $400,000 house, and they're out. So if a 6% interest rate swing up couldn't lower the price of real estate, I really don't see how a decrease in rate and an increase in buying power is going to lead to a price decrease. It's just not going to happen. They're going to stay stable or they're going to go up. That's it. The only thing that affects that is a flood of new inventory. We know that's not going to happen because still at least half of the people that are in it at 3 and 4% aren't going to sell their house because they don't want to walk away from the 30-year fixed 3% loan. They don't want to do it. So that builds in our lack of inventory, our inventory scarcity right there. Demand goes way through the roof because now with the 2% cut, there's more people that can afford to be in the market again. We've still got crappy inventory. We've got an increased level of demand. You don't have to be Warren Buffett to figure out what that does to price.
yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I'm seeing is a lot of very smart people, at least I think they're smart people, real estate agents that have been in the business for a long time are not really saying where they think it's going to go, saying what's going to happen. I think that a lot of people are just kind of taking a hiatus on their opinion on what's going to happen. I think that, I'm not sure if you follow them too, but there's a real estate appraiser down here, Ryan Lundquist, who does a great job, great stats. And he has been asked over and over and over again to give his opinion on it, and he won't do it.
No comment.
He's saying, you know what? We really don't even know what's going to happen. So before I can form an opinion, I think we need to wait it out a little bit longer and see what transpires.
And he's absolutely right. And here's why he feels that way. Now, my estimation, what I just spent a minute and a half talking about before that last comment, that is my opinion based on what has happened. And, that's all that it is my opinion. I don't carry the following that some of these guys carry when making opinions, but I could understand why he would feel that way. And that is because in the past 3 years, we've gone through the weirdest situation that I've ever seen. No one could have predicted that there would be no significant price decrease with a rate swing of that magnitude. A rate swing in that magnitude should have knocked 25% off a price literally overnight, and it just didn't happen. So it's the weirdest thing that I've ever seen. And I think that's got a lot of people that usually make opinions and usually make predictions and have a good amount of following, and they're worried, they're concerned that they don't want to be wrong because they'll, lose their credibility or something. I mean, if I was one of those guys, I might shut up too, because there's no way to tell. It's my best guess based on what has happened, what we've been through, and the fact that there was no effect on that. and then a swing to the affirmative for the buyer, you know, it's only going to get worse. That's my opinion. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, hell, we hedged our bet on that opinion. You know, we bought real estate. We bought it at the highest rate. We literally closed escrow on the peak rate day, thinking that, well, rates are going to go down. We'll be able to refinance that and prices are going to go up. So that was our sweet spot. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, or I hope I'm not wrong, but I could be. You know,
Yeah.
could be.
Yeah, I kind of look at it like in lieu of St. Patty's Day that just passed, the real estate market is in purgatory.
Totally. Completely. It's absolutely in purgatory. Yeah. All right. Who else? Anybody else got to take? Because Brendan and I can just keep talking for an hour. So, yeah, perfect. What else? Here's what I'm hearing. So, it's interesting. I got a couple of phone calls this week from people that had kind of attended our little, like, this is going to happen events. Suddenly they're really, really interested in talking about coming on board, because everything that we predicted, and I didn't predict it, I want to be clear about that. I didn't predict any of this. James Dwiggins did, and I just stole his words. Everything that he predicted came absolutely true. Everything that he said would happen absolutely happened or is happening, right? I mean, almost right down to the letter. It's like, you know, like maybe he's Dr. Evil and he's making all of this happen. But it's crazy how much of this stuff came true and how much of the prep work that he put the company into is going to pay off big time. So the other thing that I'm hearing a lot of, and it's a lot kind of goes along with what Brendan's saying, is people have absolutely no idea still what it means. And I'm talking about people in our industry. Agents in our industry have no idea what it actually means. I had a phone call today from somebody that wants to meet and wants to join the brokerage, and she fought me for like 15 minutes on, no, that's not what the lawsuit is. It's this. And I said, okay, where are you getting your information? Because like, that's not it at all. None of it. And here, watch this video. So I think that things are going to get really, really confusing, even more than they were before, because now it's real. And what's complicated, and what we're going to talk about with a little bit of prep today, is all of this stuff is going to hit the road. The date right now is 7/24. That's not that far away, right? So 7/24, today is 3/22/21. All right. So that's 4 months. Think about the process of a typical selling client or a typical buying client. It's a 60-day process, right? So that means that your current round, or whoever you meet tomorrow, is probably going to fall into this transition, right? So with that said, I'm asking Mary to make a couple of adjustments to our file requirements to add some forms. And that's what we're going to talk about on the buy side of the transaction. That's going to get us ahead of the curve. Okay. And then on the sell side of the transaction, I was going to talk about that first, just to kind of get it out of the way, because the sell side of the transaction is a lot less complicated. All right. So from this point forward, when you meet with the seller, chances are real good that they watch the news too, and they're going to automatically assume that they don't have to pay something. They don't know what it is, but they don't have to pay something. They know they have to pay less, and they've been waiting for this for a long time, because that's what Savannah Guthrie told them, right? And it's just a great day for them. I'm kind of excited about that, because I think that'll bring some sellers out of the woodwork. Thinking that they don't have to pay something is going to bring them out of the woodwork. So the first thing that you're going to have to be prepared to address really quickly is what that something is and whether or not they, quote, have to pay it. To be clear, pre-lawsuit MLS rules say they never had to pay something. All right. We did need to offer a cooperation policy as per the MLS rule, but that cooperation, they could have paid $1. They could have paid $1, right? You could negotiate your listing commission for whatever it was, and the cooperating commission could have been $1. We didn't do that for some very obvious reasons, right? There is a bona fide list of reasons to offer compensation to whoever represents the buyer that's going to purchase their home. That hasn't changed either. Okay. So what I would say, and what I did say in my last listing appointment was, look, you're absolutely right. But then again, you've never had to pay anything. But come the end of July, it will be against the MLS rules to pay the way that you've paid in the past. What I would suggest is that you consider paying the same amount that we've always paid for this big old list of reasons. Get in a little bit more detail. Number one, the financing situation of the buyer. It's difficult for somebody who's buying a house to come up with another wad of money to pay their agent. Number two, we don't have a way to finance that money right now. Number three, offering participation at some level is going to increase the traffic into your home. All of these things. But what you can tell them is that we might have to pay it differently. You might have to pay it with a credit to the buyer's closing costs, and then the buyer pays their agent from that credit. It might be a concession from the seller concession, right? You just won't be a cooperating commission. But we need to let them know and acknowledge, yes, we know what's going on. We know that things are changing. We know that you don't have to pay a commission, but you never had to pay a commission in the first place. And here's the reasons why that's an important thing, right? Get out in front of it. Don't try. I've heard people talk about, well, if we don't say anything and we just keep things the way they are, that's a bad idea. Get out in front of it, acknowledge it right away, say this is out there, this is changing, this is happening. Here's why I think that as a team, we should consider offering some kind of compensation in one of these different ways, right? Stay in front of it, okay? Anything that's signed before the drop dead date, if the drop dead date happens to be 7/24, anything that's signed before with a cooperating commission filled out in the listing agreement is still going to be valid. They're not going to make you cancel and rewrite listing agreements, all right? But it would be wise if you're getting close to that point to maybe not do it the old way and do it one of the new ways that we'll be working on over the next couple of weeks, couple of months, okay? Any questions on that? Seller side?
It'd be nice to have now or in the future some of those points that we can use with our sellers as far as why they should offer a compensation for the buyer's agent.
Okay, I'm making myself right now.
Okay, I would love to have something like that, because then I can, the more I practice those, the more when I go on a listing appointment, I can just bury the seller and go, hey, look, this is why we do it.
Okay.
One that comes to mind real easy for me that I'll share with you guys is that I thought about is you can tell your seller that, hey, look, if we don't offer a compensation to the buyer's agent, most likely the people that have FHA loans or VA loans where they're paying very minimal down, who don't have a lot of money, you're severely shrinking your buyer pool and possibly missing out on one of your best offers.
Yep. You're limiting the market that's able to buy your house, and you could run your best offer out the door.
Yep.
Good point. So Felicia said elaborate. So if a buyer that is in a real affordability disadvantage, first time home buyer, somebody that needs to take advantage of a 3.5 down payment loan, FHA loan, or a 0 down VA loan, until we, and when I say we, I mean NAR, until NAR is successful in changing the lending matrices and allowing those buyers to finance a potential commission within their loan, they're not going to have the money in their pocket or access to the money in their pocket or access to the money period to pay that commission. Therefore, they're going to scratch that house off their list because they can't afford it.
Is that kind of what we talked about, where it was like getting, like, the house is listed for this much, but getting the loan pre-approved for this much because of the commission, but then now they're saying that that's not going to be the thing for FHA and V?
No, they are still saying that that's the thing for FHA and VA, but it hasn't gone through yet. They
Okay.
haven't rewritten the rules yet. So
Oh, not
there-
solid-
there could be a period of time where all of a sudden the commission rules change and they haven't quite gotten it done yet, right? We
Mhm.
don't know that, but there could be that period of time. And in that interim, if they don't have a financing option, they just can't even look at that house. They can't pursue it because
um,
it's out of their budget. Yeah, their overall budget. Good point, Bryn. Anything else? Okay, so let's talk about buyer files. All right. And I'll do a screen share in a minute to go through these forms. But when we talk about buyer files now, I really want you to start, even though it's not required, well, it's going to be required to be in the file. We're going to, let me back up. We're going to require that there's a BRBC on every file. I think that we talked about this in a meeting or two before. But what I really want you to do, I mean, technically, let's be honest. Right now, you could put something into escrow. You could go, oh, crap, I forgot my BRBC. You could fill it out after the fact, and then you could put it into the transaction. Everything would be fine. What I really want you to do is to force yourself to make a change, to get to the point where you are filling out that BRBC file either before you show a house or very early in the game. Start transitioning and training yourself to do it now. Okay. As far as the commissions go right now, in the section of the BRBC file, or BRBC form rather, you're going to be saying that the commission is going to be paid through a cooperating commission in the MLS. So it's an easy fill out, it's an easy sell, but it gets you into the routine of getting that set up. And I don't want to go through that form again because we just went through it, 2 weeks ago. So if you ever need help with the form, let me know and I'll get into it with you. The second thing you have to have, and I would submit this with any offer right now. In fact, I do submit this with every offer right now, is the CBC form. And that is the confirmation of cooperating broker commissions or something like that. I think we mentioned this form not too long ago, but let me see if I can find one for you just to be sure. Share the screen. There's the car forms. Yeah. Okay. So, is this the buyer box? Yeah. Where is it? Oh no. Where is it? Sorry, guys. Give me just a second. Okay. Now we'll go back. Okay. It's this form. Okay. Basically, what you're doing, you're just doing it to check this box right here. Okay, it's going to be a confirmation of the compensation offered in the MLS. You're going to click that box right there, stating that you're accepting the offer, the current offer of compensation in the MLS, and it's probably going to be a percentage right here of 2.5, right? So it's going to go there, and it's going to go there. It's going to be 2.5. That's typically what it is. And then down at the bottom, this is a form for the opposite, or for the listing agent and their broker. It's not a form for your buyer. It's a form for the listing agent and the broker. But submit it with an offer as the last form in the offer. The offer comes back or goes into counter without this form. And then once it's in contract, I make darn sure that this form comes back to me. And here's why. Imagine that it's July 15th. Okay. I talked to you about another scenario before, but imagine that it's July 15th. It's July 23rd. Sorry, you submit an offer. Okay. When you submitted the offer, the published cooperating commission in the MLS was 2.5%. You submit the offer, it goes into counter, that lasts for 2 days. You get it back signed on July 26th. Okay, executed, agreed, signed on July 26th. On July 24th, as prescribed by the new NAR settlement, That commission was removed from the listing, and there was a 0 offer of compensation and a 0 offer of seller concession on the property. Okay. What commission are you entitled to? You wrote the offer and submitted it. It was posted 2.5 in the MLS. On the 24th, they took it away. And on the 26th, you went under contract. Which commission are you entitled to? Anyone? How many of you think that it's when you wrote the offer? You wrote the offer at 2.5%. You were smart. You knew things were changing. You included an MLS sheet with that thing circled, and you sent it off to be signed. How many of you think that on the 26th, you're entitled to 2.5%? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you think you're entitled to nothing? How many of you aren't sure? Okay. You're entitled. The answer is you're entitled to nothing. Okay. The commission rules state that it is the commission that is posted in the MLS at the time of execution, the time of full execution, full ratification. So the fact that you wrote it, on whatever date was, 2.5, it doesn't matter. It's when it was signed. So keep in mind that people are going to start shifting and sellers are going to start giving people pressure in advance of July 24th. Even if July 24th is hey, this is the ruling date, don't think for a minute that sellers aren't going to, between now and then, because they saw it on the news or they saw it wherever else or they read it in a magazine, don't think that they're going to not start putting downward pressure on commissions. Steve's not here today, but Steve texted me the other day and said, hey, I just saw one for 0.5 cooperating commission, right? So it's out there. Here's what else this form is good for. Let's say that you have some knucklehead that doesn't understand what's going on, and they take the cooperating commission down to 1% because they think, well, that's just the way it is now. Okay. You can call the knucklehead and say, what are you doing? Do you want me to sell your house? The guy says, yeah. And you say, okay, great. Well, if you're going to have that happen, you want me to sell your house, it's going to cost you 2.5. And the guy goes, yeah, you're right. I wasn't really ready for it or whatever else. We can use this form to modify, right? I don't care if you're posted 1.0 in the MLS. I'm going to modify that commission and submit it with my offer, and you're going to pay me 2.5. Okay. So we can go either way with this form, right? Number one, before you write any offer, I never used to do this, by the way. I just write the offer. But I don't care if I was making 2.5, 3, 2.0. I don't care. I'm selling real estate, right? I wouldn't dream of writing an offer now without thoroughly reading the MLS sheet to see what was going on and supplying one of these. Okay. So we're going to require this form on every file. It's for your protection as much as it is the brokerage's. All right. And just get used to using it. The other rule that's going to come out of the settlement that I think is kind of cool is 2 points of disclosure to a buyer about the source of the funds, right? If you go back to our BRBC meeting, you'll remember me talking about this, where I said, look, the agreement states that you have to disclose to them where the money's coming from and how much of it there is, whether or not they're the buyer, they are going to have to participate in that. And then when it closes, you have to let them know the total compensation you received and where it came from, so that if it exceeds the amount that you've agreed to, you can give them the difference, right? You go to your buyer broker representation, BRBC. You go to BRBC and you execute it with your buyer and you say, look, I work for 3, okay? I work for 3%, and I'm going to try and negotiate that from the seller or through some credits or whatever, but you need to know that at the end of the day, if I only get 2.5%, you're on the hook for 0.5. If I get 1%, you're on the hook for 2. Just the same, if I happen to somehow get 4, you get 1 back. Okay. Whatever excess we have in commission beyond the scope of the BRBC, the amount that's in the BRBC, goes straight back to the buyer. We don't keep the extra money. It goes straight back to the buyer. There's 2 points of disclosure that you're going to have to start using with regard to commission funds, and you're going to have to disclose that to your buyer. The first one is at the time you write the offer. You've got to let them know, I'm writing this offer and I expect to receive 2.5% directly from the seller. And I don't expect to receive any money from you. Okay. Then when you close, you've got to tell them, this is how much I actually got. Here's the form. This the ABCD form. Isn't that awesome? Form ABCD. Okay. So when we, and this form's good now, right now. Okay. When we're writing the offer, we're telling you, Jack buyer and Jill buyer, that we anticipate receiving compensation from either the seller or the seller's broker or you in the following amounts. Here's the property address. Here's when I wrote the offer. The compensation offered, either a percentage or a flat fee, and it's MLS compensation. In other words, the 2.5% listed on the MLS, or it's CBC compensation, meaning I wrote the offer and took a CBC form to the opposite brokerage. The opposite brokerage is going to pay me a traditional co-op in the amount of this, or it's coming from somewhere else. Fill in the blank. Most of them today are going to be MLS 2.5, right? Day in, day out, cooperating commissions, 2.5% of sales price. You're going to give your buyer the property address, the date you wrote the offer, the fact that you're getting 2.5 MLS co-op. Okay. Buyer's going to sign. The bottom is completed after closing. Once again, we've got a property address right here. Okay. I got this much from the seller, and let's imagine that there was portion from the buyer. I got this much from the buyer in the amount of this. This is the brokerage firm. This is the license number. This is who I am. This is my license number, and you're going to initial it, right? So we let them know up front, this is what we expect to get. The way that it sits today, it's going to look something like that. At the end of the day, or at the end of the transaction rather, currently the way it is, we would list our co-op commission amount in that box right there. There wouldn't be anything in the following box, but notice how they're setting the form up for the future, right? We would complete it all and they would initial it. Now in the future, it might read differently. There might be, hey, I worked for 3, I got 1.5 from the MLS, and I got 1.5 from you. The bottom section might read, I got 1.5 from the other broker, the MLS, and I got 1.5 from the buyer, and everybody initials. Transparency. Does that make sense? Everybody get it? Seeing some strange scowls.
At what point in time is this executed?
Good question. Executed, top half of the form executed at point of offer. That's why it's called expected, because it could shift, it could change, right? And then bottom half at closing.
Got it.
Most likely at the closing table. Now, full disclosure, guys, I haven't used this form either. Like a lot of this stuff that we're going into, I don't have scripted yet. I don't have it down pat yet. I haven't used it yet. I'm learning about it just like you guys are, right? Wading my way through it. And I promise you, just like everything else that's gone on with this situation, with the lawsuits and everything else, this form is going to change 7 times in the next 3 months. Okay. So you just got to be on them. You got to be reading them. You got to see how they're changing. You got to be using them so that you can know the differences. And we cannot, with either any of these forms, the BRBC comes to mind, the CBC comes to mind, the ABCD, this one comes to mind. We absolutely cannot ever, for the next few months, go into cruise control filling these forms out. We actually have to read them while we're filling them out because they're going to change them. The BRBC changed 3 times in the 6 months that I was talking to you guys about it. That form changed 3 times because they don't know. They're making it up as they go along. Okay. So buyer's files, the things that are different now, you got to have the BRBC. You got to have the CBC, the Cooperating Commission form, and you got to have this ABCD, which is a disclosure of commissions to the buyer. And it's got to be filled out at the beginning of the transaction, or not the writing of the offer, the beginning of the transaction, and then at the closing table, so that they understand. This forms a direct result of the settlement. About the most fun you can have talking about car forms for an hour. Sucks, but you know what? Every other meeting or so, we gotta ditch the fun stuff and we gotta get into the nuts and bolts. Or I tell you, we're absolutely not gonna know what we're doing when it comes to forms, and that could be a real problem where we're going in the future, because not knowing what's going on with the forms or not knowing about the process the way we should means, you know what, we're not going to get paid. Right? Questions? Comments? Anybody want to say this sucks? I mean, I kind of think it sucks, but I also kind of like it. You know, it elevates. Who was I talking? No, I wasn't talking. I was watching the playback that I wanted you guys to watch, the playback with James and Keith and the lawyer. If you haven't carved out 55 minutes yet to watch it, please do. There's some really important stuff in there. And one of the things is, one of the comments made is, we have to get really, really good at negotiating and understanding negotiating. And we have to elevate our level of professionalism probably 5 notches, and we have to do it now. Because once we're in the position to have to talk about it, once you're in the position of having to negotiate your commission with 3 parties all the time, if you're not good at it, if you're not comfortable with it, if you don't have a high level of confidence with it, you're just not going to work. Okay? You're not going to make any money. You're not going to get any work. And you're going to be part of the 30% attrition that I'm forecasting for real estate agents. Turn your speaker on. What was your question?
I said, you mean we can call you and get your help to be more confident in ourselves?
Absolutely, absolutely 100% accurate. And thank you for bringing that up.
Thanks.
I put my money where my mouth is. At 9 a.m. tomorrow, I've got a Zoom call for one of our agents who's got a listing appointment in Germany. Okay. The seller lives in Germany. The house is in Rockland. It's a big house. It's kind of scary for the agent, you know. I said, but you're going to have to Zoom them. Okay. You guys will figure out who I'm talking about the more I keep talking. And she's like, I don't know, Zoom them. And I'm like, you're going to have to Zoom them, you know? And she's just not really excited about it. Right. And I said, hey, you know what? I'll set it up. I'll do it. I'll Zoom with you. I won't do it for you. You do the thing. I'll be your backup. The minute you start to stumble or trip over your words, I'm in. Okay. Same thing with any of this paperwork, same thing with any buyer's meeting, same thing with any of it. If you aren't comfortable and you need backup, I will be there. I will absolutely be there. And like I told her, I'll only scare your client a little bit. Okay. Because unfortunately, when I'm working, I only have one personality and it's hard for me to tune it down, right? I just want to win. I just want to win. So, I'm going to see if I'm allowed to teach. I don't know if I am, but I'm going to see if I'm allowed to teach the RENE designation with NAR, the real estate negotiating expert. I think I am, but I have to find out. If I'm not, I think that you guys should take that class online as soon as possible. If I am allowed to teach it, I'll teach it, live and we can do it live. But if I'm not, I think that that's something that you should tag on real quick. And plus it'll be good for you. Like who thinks right now today as you sit, raise your hand that you're just a kick-ass negotiator. You can negotiate your way into or out of anything. Yeah, I would agree, Brent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I'm not scared of anything. So, if you don't feel that way, this is not for me to brag. If you don't feel that way, I want you to feel that way, right? So take the class or bring me with you until you feel like, okay, I got this. Like I understand it. But the more you do it and the more that you're put in those situations and the more you have to kind of like claw your way through something, the more comfortable you're going to be. The only way to get any good at it is to practice, is to do it. And Cindy is the queen of, hey, I want to role play. She loves to come in and like, okay, give it to me. Like let me practice with you. We can do that too. And you don't have to be here, or we don't have to be in the same room for you to do that. We can do it right over this computer screen. Okay. If you want to do it in real life, I'm here. Absolutely here. But, maybe you get to the point, much like the listing agreement, maybe you get to the point where you're like, you know what, I'm going to meet this buyer tomorrow. I want to fill out a BRBC. I want to do it right. But, I'm over my head. I don't know what to do. So you and I set up a Zoom or we sit down and, we get you dialed in, on the presentation. I will not make it easy for you. I will make it harder for you than any client ever will. And, then when you show up with the client, it'll be a piece of cake. But you just got to do it. You got to make a decision that everything's going to be different now. You're going to have to work harder for what you're going to get and just be all in with that. Like, fine, bring it. Absolutely bring it. You're all better already because I know you. You're all better than 70% of the people that are out there trying to do it right now. You already are. You just don't believe it yourself yet. But I've listened to you ask for things and want things and tell me why this brokerage or I should be doing something different. You all know how to do it. Do it to me all the time. Questions, comments, fears, excitements. What do you got?
I got a couple things.
Speak. Everybody must take a turn speaking or I'm not hanging up the phone. It's hang up time, but I'm not doing it until everybody says something. If you can't say something here, you're sure as heck not going to be able to like go beg 3% from a buyer. And oh, by the way, I'm making a statement. I'm telling you right now, in the next 12 months, I will negotiate a BRBC form where the buyer pays me directly out of their pocket or out of their proceeds, one side at 5%. I will do it. You want to know why? Brendan, you want to know why?
Tell me.
Because I am worth every damn penny. And it will cost you money not to pay me that money. That's why.
I like it. I like it. I've got a couple things to say, and then I'll shut up here. So I'm coming from a very large brokerage, a lot of great agents,
the biggest.
but I got to tell everybody that's here on this Zoom call that this type of support and high level knowledge that's being shared, and you're being given the opportunity to use, Damian's expertise and help whenever he wants, is just not there from where I came from. So that's a huge thing, and I feel good about that for sure. I feel like I have a leg up because of that. So that's one thing. That's amazing to have that support. The other thing is, I think in these tough times, there's definitely opportunities. Always opportunity in these tough times. I'm seeing a lot of agents look really burnt out, where there's some really high level older agents who are just going, I'm done, I'm getting out. And other agents that just don't, aren't good at it, they're getting out, which means there's going to be less competition for us. So I think, there's definitely some opportunity in this, even though it's tough right now.
Yeah. I mean, imagine these are big sweeping changes, right? And they're going to require us to work harder for our money. Let's be honest. Now, imagine that you're a 30-year agent and you've done well, and maybe you don't really even have to work. You've just been doing it because you're really, really good at it. It's not that impactful. You have your system dialed and wired, and it's great to do a couple, 3, 4 transactions a year to augment whatever income you've got going or whatever else. You're not going to go through this pain. You're not going to do it. Why? Right? Plus, you're so set in your ways that you don't want to do it. You just don't. So yeah, that's part of the attrition that's on the way. That's part of the 30% that's coming. And then the other balance of the 30% is the people that, they just don't have the skills, or they don't have the courage, or whatever. You can't just say, well, I've got my real estate license, I'm going to do buyers, and go out and fumble your way through a buyer's transaction and count on somebody paying you 2.5% because you showed up. You can't do that. They're gone. Next, Brendan spoke, so he's off the hook.
Does Amen brother count?
What's that?
Does Amen brother count?
Amen, brother. No. Well, you could start with that, but you have to say more. You can't just, you can start or end with that. Just your take on all of this, how you're feeling after, going through the new forms, how you're feeling after what we've talked about, talking about the changes and the shifts, how you're feeling about your level of confidence in negotiating. You just have to talk.
Yeah, this is gonna be great. I never did it before, so I'm just gonna be doing it the right way from the start.
There you go.
So thanks, I really appreciate it. Yeah, this is a phenomenal information to have in front of needing to happen. So,
There you go. Remind me to close with my last thought that I forgot to include. Okay. Good job, Michael. That's all true. Come on, girls.
Can you hear me?
Probably.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I just say, bring it on. And
All my life I've gone through so many changes and had to adapt, and it's scary, yeah. But you know what? You're right, Brandon. I did your open house, I think, in Nova Vista, but it's I just roll with the punches. And I'm running on faith, so I know that we're all gonna get through this. We're all gonna figure it out. We got Damian, so we're good.
Yeah. That's small potatoes for you, huh? This change is a piece of cake, huh? All right, Queen, what you got?
Am I gonna echo? No. Okay, we're good. Got a lot of eyeballs looking at me and not a lot to say. That's what I got. I think I'm kind of like Cindy. I want to role play and get more comfortable with, being demanding that my worth and payment basically when it comes down to it. So, but I feel very comfortable in forms and in the whole thing, the transition. I don't feel worried about it at all. I feel safe and good, but definitely want to get more confident.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, I would agree with that. You get everybody, I think. Everybody here, actually everybody in our organization, we've spent a lot of time on forms and process and all of that stuff. And I think that you guys have all got a really good handle on it. Sure, we added an ABCD form today, and that's a new form, but that's not a problem for you. You've all got a pretty good handle on the forms and the differences and understanding when and why to execute agreements. I think that the struggle for us, for anybody, is going to be all right. How do we put this into words, communicate our worth from a place that's comfortable, rather than being like, oh, this is new, a little nervous about it, not quite sure about it. Am I going to piss these people off? Are they going to still want to use me? All those things. So that's, I think, where we are going to we're going to spend some time over the next few weeks getting into that. I think that would be most helpful. Okay. Closing thought. And I meant to open with this, but I forgot. So when we first got here, I said, tell me what you're hearing, tell me what's on the street, tell me what you got going on, tell me what you're reading, all of that stuff. When you hear people talk about this stuff, jump in and lead. Jump in and lead. Tell them, hey, that's not what's going on here. Here's what's going on. Okay. Be part of the solution and set yourself up as an expert. Because whoever is on the opposite side of that conversation is going to remember who got it right. Right? They're going to remember who knew what they were talking about. And they're going to have less of a problem signing your BRBC at 3%, because you know exactly what the hell you're talking about and exactly what's going on and exactly what all the nuance of all this is. Okay. That's how you're going to win more business. That's how you're going to grow your business. You're going to grow your business by knowing what's going on, being able to articulate what's going on, and being an expert leading the way. Okay. Any more questions? No. All right. Well, thanks for coming. Sell some real estate. Hit me up if you want to argue over the Zoom, aka negotiate. I'm happy to do that anytime. And I'm going to hang up now. See y'all later.